again. Give me the hot sauce. Give me the hot sauce, Bob.
We have flipped the calendar to July, and it's time for a brand new episode of Gimme the Hot Sauce. We've now reached episode number 35. We've had some great legends when we talked about our episodes 33 and 34. 35 drops off a little bit, but we've got a couple of great names to tell you about. The Big Hurt, of course, Frank Thomas. You watch him now doing White Sox pre and post. Watch him on Fox Sports, one of the best right-handed hitters of all time. Other baseball, a couple of pitchers, Justin Verlander and Mike Mussina. They sported number 35. From the world of football, we've got Aeneas Williams, who played for the Arizona Cardinals. KD came into the NBA with the Seattle Sonics. I don't know if you remember that, wearing number 35. Tony Esposito, the great Blackhawks goaltender. And Stinger wants to talk about a guy that he met blocking back for the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to make sure.
Roland Harper.
This was the second photo of the collection that I have.
He's in the basement again, Stacey.
Once again in the basement. In his singlet, an oiled down body.
It's show and tell time. Give me the hot sauce.
Well, I hope people are watching on YouTube.
If you're not watching on YouTube, you really should be.
Well, you should
you missed the show and tell segment.
Okay, they can't really see it, John.
Yeah,
Your big head's
yeah.
in the way.
Yeah.
You got to put it in front. There you
Sweetness
go.
and his good buddy Roland Harper, who was his blocking back. Did you get that autograph by his assistant again, too?
I think that's
that Neil Anderson?
That's Neil Anderson.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Neil Anderson.
That was a changing of the guard, and I thought I did a nice little move from the 34 to the 35 that nobody commented on. That I sent, hey, 34 down, we're on the 35th episode.
Is that a natural progression?
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I had the numbers.
Like 1, 2, 3.
I don't want to take the show down, but Steve Smith was a Raider. He's on the 19.
Way to start the show, right, Stacey?
Yeah,
He was on the 86 National Championship Penn State Nittany Lion. He was a battering ram. That's what Art Shell called him.
Yeah.
He blocked for Bo and Marcus.
Okay.
He suffered an injury, has Lou Gehrig's disease. He married a wonderful gal, Raiderette. They're still married. They have 2 kids. He cannot speak. It's all via a computer, and he's on a ventilator. It's a really sad story. I think they did a special about it. Like I said, I'm not trying to bring it down, but he was such a wonderful guy to me, being a young guy, trying to fit in. He took me under his wing several times, and I consider him a friend, and I feel bad that I haven't reached out. And so I'm not trying to be a downer.
Wow.
But he was a great guy, great man.
Someone handing me a tissue.
Great man.
So wait a minute. So he's a good friend of yours?
Well, I you know how you go through stages in your life, and that. I was a Raider for 5 years, and then I left and went on my own, and he went to Seattle, and then next I find out that, several years later, I didn't keep in contact. Sure.
That happens a lot.
He's a professional ball player. I don't expect him to, reach out to me, but it was just, it's just sad because he was so nice to me when,
That's
he
a
didn't
terrible.
have to be.
That's a terrible disease too.
Yeah.
It's just oh man. I mean, there's no cure for it, and it's very painful. And it's debilitating. So, oh man,
Our prayers go out to Steve Smith and his family, and good memories from Stinger there.
Thank you.
We're going to have a special guest coming up who's got a lot of memories. The Hall of Famer Sam Smith is going to join us in a few minutes, and we're going to try to sort out the whole Scottie Pippen situation. We'll save it for the next segment. But I'll tell you what, that was a very strange couple of interviews that he did, both on GQ and the Dan Patrick Show. So. We'll save that for the next segment. But, Stacey, last time we met, we were hoping that the Bulls were going to get some lottery luck, and they didn't. And, I guess that's going to kind of change the whole course of what they're going to do this offseason. It's no secret they're looking for a starting caliber point guard. I guess they're going to have to go either the trade or free agent route now.
Well, I mean, listen, I know a lot of the Bulls fans were upset that they didn't get, top 4 pick, and they gave away their first round pick, but you got to give away something to get something. So they gave away their first round pick. We don't know what that first round pick would have been or what it would have entailed, but we do know we got an all-star caliber player center, which we definitely need, a pick and pop guy, a guy that can post up. And he proved how valuable he is with the Bulls. Now I know the wins didn't come along with that, but this is a guy who rolls out of bed every single night, 20 and 10 every single night, like death and taxes. So, they're ahead of the game in that aspect. You got 2 all-stars in Zach LaVine and Vooch, and now, it makes it more appealing for people. And if you're watching the Phoenix Suns and the Atlanta Hawks, 2 young teams that, have all these really good young players and then the right veterans, the right mix of players, if you're a Bulls fan, you got to be encouraged. Our roster is not too far off from those 2 teams.
Point guard?
We just need a point guard.
Point guard, you need.
Yeah, we need a point. I mean,
Chris Paul, that performance closing out the Clippers.
But you know what though, it would have been interesting, and you know, I mean, they were the hottest team in the bubble last year, so. I pretty much thought they would be a playoff team this year. You know, I didn't think they'd be the number one seed. Had the best road record in the NBA, but Chris Paul does that for you. I mean, did it with Oklahoma City, and you see where Oklahoma City fell off when he left. So, you know, Chris Paul's like 35 or 36 years old. You don't know how many years he has left in him. You know, but what he's done with Phoenix is just unbelievable. And then you get the young talent which they drafted. You know, DeAndre Ayton has played like a veteran center. A guy looks like a franchise type of center, which a lot of people were down on him his first couple of years. Chris Paul has really helped his game. Kind of very similar to what he did with Tyson Chandler when Tyson Chandler left and came to play with New Orleans and the Oklahoma City team when they came. Very similar. And then Booker was an all-star. Booker was, you know, Devin Booker is one of the top players in the game.
And they got him, what, at about 12 or 13 in the draft?
Yeah.
All-time steal.
But he's I mean, he looks like Kobe Bryant out there. When you watch him play, I mean, he's got just his mannerisms, the way he attacks you. He can get his shot, you know, catch and shoot, you know, pick and pop, pick and rolls. And when Chris Paul was out, he had to handle the ball a little bit more than what he probably would if Chris Paul was there. And he was able to come off that little single double, you know, pick screens, pop, and be able to still get people involved. So, I mean, and again, just the right veterans. You got Jay Crowder, who was on Miami's team last year that went to the finals, a guy who's tough, hard-nosed.
Can shoot the three.
They got all the right pieces to play with all their core young guys. And Mikal Bridges is an unsung
He's been great
player. I mean, great
long arms, great defender,
3-and-D player. Yeah. So if you look at the Bulls roster, Bulls fans, I mean, we're not too far off. I mean, yeah, we need to upgrade the bench. I mean, there's 3 or 4 guys that you got to have a bench these days. You got to have depth, and if you don't have quality depth, you're not going to go far. You're not going to win a lot of games. So I think they're going to address that issue this year. Get some quality depth. Try to get a point guard because you don't know what Kobe White's situation is because of the fact that he had the shoulder surgery. You know how long that's going to take and how long he's going to be out. So you definitely need a point guard.
But the head of the snake, Chris Paul, the best closer.
Yeah, he's turned that whole thing around. There's
37
no question about
points to close out Denver. Yeah. He had 41 last night. The last time that's happened is Michael Jordan had 33 in consecutive games way back in 1996. I mean, I love the way he carved him up. Clippers got desperate and were throwing up threes. He would come down and carve up and get to that free throw line extended. And that was like old school basketball. That was just something to watch. He had it was a 10-0 run. It was his own 8-0 personal 8-0 run at the third quarter.
Well, I think the difference in the game is basketball IQ. I mean, because when you looked at the game last night, Phoenix got high percentage shots almost every single time down the floor. They're a great transition team. So when they get a rebound or get a steal, they're out and running and they get easy baskets. But what I saw last night, which I thought was a difference in the game, was the fact that when they needed to come down in a half-court set, they got a good shot every single time down the floor. Whereas on the flip side, when the Clippers had matchups they could exploit, they didn't do it. When they had a pick and roll and you saw Paul George go inside against Chris Paul, the smaller defender, and they end up shooting a three. It's just high basketball IQ. And the difference in the game is guys understand, what's a good shot in the playoffs. You saw Chris Paul orchestrate, okay, get out here, you go here, you go here, you go there. Coming off a pick and roll, being able to tell people where to be and know where everybody is on the floor. And then when you break down the defense, it's like, okay, if you're going to play off me, I'm going to pull up this mid-range shot. Yeah. If you go underneath the screen, I'm going to pull up for a three-point shot. So just the basketball IQ is a big difference, I thought, in that series. And then Patrick Beverley. Listen, I'm a fan of Patrick Beverley's, okay? But the antics that he did.
That was terrible.
I mean, seriously,
for the whole series.
For the whole series. When he is rolling, he's clapping and talking trash and getting in people's faces. And then last night when the shoe was on the other foot, and he didn't like that. When Chris Paul was torching him, he didn't like that. And then the shove in the back, I think that's cowardly. If I'm going to get at you, I'm going to make sure you see me. Because I don't ever want you to say, Stacey King's a punk. Stacey King's he's a coward. He pushed me in the back or he hit me when my back was turned. If me and you're going at it and it comes time for blows, you're going to see it coming. Okay? I'm not going to get that rap like Stacey King's a sucker puncher and all that. No. You got to face like a man.
If you step into
If you step in that airspace, it's nothing but air and opportunity, and the air is all gone. 2-piece. I'm telling you. I mean, but to push somebody in the back, the game is over. You're getting beat by 30.
Yeah,
have some
Not
class,
good.
dude. Have
Not
some class. It's bush league. Exactly.
Yeah.
Explore that analogy you made about the Bulls compared to the Hawks and the Suns. There's a big element of luck that goes into that too. I mean, if that lottery would have turned out different a couple of years, look at Phoenix. They get the number 1 pick. They take DeAndre Ayton, and some people said, well, that they made a mistake by taking him number 1, but that big man is doing some things for them.
Nice.
And then you get Devin Booker late in the lottery. You look at the situation with Utah where they got Donovan Mitchell late in the lottery, which actually was a trade with Denver. But you need some luck, and to this point, the Bulls really have not had luck. We hope that Patrick Williams turns out to be a really good player, and then you'll say, well, that was maybe the start of really turning this thing around.
Good scouting. Mm-hmm. That's the main thing. You listen. You can sit up there as a fan and play fantasy and go, I'm gonna pick him. I'm gonna pick him. That's what some GMs do. They play fantasy. But then the other people, the good people that actually do homework, actually studies a guy more than just one game or go by hearsay of someone saying this kid did this kid did that. They really do their homework. And you got to give credit to Atlanta and Phoenix because all the young players that they brought in are key pieces and they filled a position. They filled a position of need because you got Trae Young in Atlanta who is a superstar guard. Now you surround him, Bogdanovich. Gallinari. You bring in, you got Capella, who's a screen and roll guy because your game is based off of screen rolls. You know what system you're playing. You're playing a lot of ball screens. So you need big guys that are active, like John Collins. When you set that screen, they roll and they finish at the rim because Trae Young, as we've seen throughout this whole season in the playoffs, when he gets inside the lane, he's going to get there anytime he wants to. Mm-hmm. But now you have options. He can give those passes to these big guys or that little runner. He wasn't able to do that his first year because he didn't have guys that could actually play with him. But they have really built that. Kevin Herter, another shooter, another kid with size. And now they just realize how good Cam Reddish is.
Yeah, he shut down Chris Middleton the other night.
Cam Reddish is a 3-and-D guy.
He was a big time, wasn't he?
He was in Duke. He was the afterthought between Zion and RJ. But a lot of people had him better than both of those guys because of his size and length and the ability to shoot the three ball.
And that's going to be a problem if Giannis doesn't play with that stopper.
I'm telling you right now.
I'm
telling you right now.
Where do the
I'm looking to make a deal for Cam Reddish because they still got Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter's out.
And both those guys are kind of the same player.
Yeah, they loaded.
Hunter's a very good defensive player, a 3-and-D guy. I think Reddish is a better shooter. But if you're a team looking for a small forward of the future, man, you better be calling Atlanta because they're not going to be able to keep all these guys. No. They're going to have to make a decision who they're going to keep. And as you can see, like that kid can freaking play. Like I was impressed. I've always been impressed with him at Duke, but what I saw when he came up because he's been injured. They threw him out there in a blowout game when the Hawks blew him, when the Milwaukee blew him out.
I thought he was done.
And he I think he had 10 or 11 points in that game, but then people said, well, that's garbage time. He didn't really do anything. The Bucks starters went out there. But then they put him out there against the A team.
He was the problem for Chris Middleton.
He was D'ing him up. The length
Middleton
bothered
had
the length.
16 points in game 4.
How many shots?
38 in game 3.
Exactly. 6 for 17, 0 for 7 from 3.
Yeah.
And
the length bothered him. The length bothered him. And that's where the league is going now, is to get these long,
Reddish had
athletic
12
wing players.
So not only D him up, he had 12 points.
Yeah, you look at what Atlanta's done. They've made shrewd draft picks, and then they filled in, like you mentioned, Stacey, with veterans who weren't at the top of the price ladder. Like they paid good money to get Bogdanovich, but they bring in Gallinari at a nice number. They tried to bring in Rondo. That didn't work out. They shipped him to L.A., and they got Lou Williams, who had a big game in game 4. So I give a lot of credit to their general manager and their front office for making good draft picks and filling in with the right vets.
And then making the move to bring Nate McMillan in. I mean,
that turned out to be great.
Wow. I mean, how much?
Because they were what, 14-20 when they fired Lloyd Pierce, and since then they've taken off.
And then it just goes to show you that because a coach like Nate is not sexy. His teams play ugly. They grind it out like he was doing in Indiana, but they were very successful doing it that way. They made it to the playoffs every year, and teams like Indiana, you get desperate. Like, well, we're not winning enough. You're winning 50 games a year. You're above 500. You're getting to the playoffs every year. Maybe it's not the coach. Maybe it's the personnel that you have. So then when he leaves Indiana, You hire a young coach with no experience, and you end up firing him after the first year, his rookie season. You fire him. They're the worst than what they were the year before.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of it is, like I said, a lot of it, I believe, just being around the game as much as I have, a lot of people, you know, they want to be this league where we want to be like Golden State. You know, we want to. Everybody can't play that way.
Right.
You got to play with the personnel that you have.
Right.
You know, if you don't have shooters, you can't be a shooting team.
And they have 2.
Okay, yeah.
And then they had 3 with Durant.
Yes. I mean, you just can't be a shooting team. If your team is a bunch of grinders and plow boys, that's what you got to be. You got to be a you know, muck it up type of game, make the game street fight.
Like the Knicks did this year.
Yes, that's what you have to do. You cannot say, well, you know, we want all these shooters and these guys shoot under 30%. Like if I can walk out right now and shoot, you know, take 10 shots from the 3-point line. Guarantee I can make 50%.
Speaking of which, once again, the Bulls the other night, they got into that 8 for 39. 8 for 39 from 3. And so, that, I mean, my South Side laughed at me because I said if the Hawks make their shots, they're going to win the series. And sure, Whispers has something to say about that, but since he's laughing, but I mean,
He's like,
Come on, Tim, defend yourself.
Defend
He's taking a
yourself.
shot at you.
I could do that right-handed.
Oh.
Oh boy.
but don't you agree? I mean, they're a better shooting team, the Hawks. And
The Hawks,
the Bucks were a good three-point shooting team.
Yeah,
I know, but I don't know.
The problem,
maybe
the problem with the Bucks. So I think they're done. I honestly, do.
they're
I
done.
mean, if Giannis can't come back and play, and there's no way in the world. Listen,
He's
I'm not
not
a
playing in
doctor.
this series.
I'm not a doctor, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn. But I will say this. There's no way in the world. He'd have to be superhuman. The way his knee looked, I thought he had the Joe Theismann type injury. I couldn't even look at it twice.
We were on the air, and everybody that was working the Brewer game let out of gas, and then my phone started blowing up. They say sports is tribal. My Grace started texting. My daughter Jacqueline, Susan jumped in, ACL. It was just, you know, and I think everybody's relieved that's no structural damage, and people are saying, "Oh, he's going to play in 7; they're going to lose." That's
you know, the thing is, you know, I'm a Milwaukee native, grew up rooting for the Bucks. John's living in his palatial estate in Brookfield now, so you know
I cut my own lawn.
He's working
Yeah, we're going to talk about my lawn.
We've already talked about cutting the lawn. We're so tired of that story.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting back to the whole Giannis thing, you know, they started off so poorly in that game. I'm watching the game thinking, oh, Trae Young's out. Bucks are going to win. They're going up 3-1. They'll close them out in Milwaukee on Thursday. And they came out. They were sleepwalking, Stacey. And Atlanta punched them in the mouth. They're up 13 at halftime. And I think they were so desperate. Remember, Giannis came out and he got the big dunk in the start of the third quarter, and he's playing really hard. Maybe he doesn't even jump up to challenge that alley-oop if they're not playing so bad. He was trying to fire up his team.
I tell you what, this is the problem with Milwaukee. It always has been, you know, because they could have easily been in the finals last year, the year before that. They had the talent to do it. There's a mentality that you have to have, not individually, but as a team. If you want to be a championship team, the mentality is totally different. You're going out there, like all the championships we won, it wasn't because like we were like always the best team. There was teams that easily could have beat us. New York could have beat us in the second championship run. They had a 2-0 lead on us in New York. You know, they had home court advantage throughout the playoffs, and then we came back and beat them. It's a mentality. It's a mentality to say to yourself, let's go handle business. One game at a time. Let's go jump on them, punch them in the mouth to start the game. They'll quit.
Yeah,
that's how we always had.
And you knew Trae Young was out in that game. All you have to do is get off to a good start.
All
and
I'm going to say
over.
is that, you know, his brother Thanasis took him. They're going to Miyagi something up. This guy is Nigerian and Greek. I've seen this guy play and come back from injuries time and time again where he wasn't supposed to play.
Spray some Windex on it.
He is going.
Have some, Timmy.
He is going to play. I'm telling you,
He's
that
He's going to
kid,
play in game.
He's not going to play.
He's going to
He's
play.
not gonna play.
He's going to Willis
He's not gonna
read
play.
it maybe in one game.
Let me just say
He'll
this.
walk out on the court on
Let
game
me just
7.
say this. Let me just say this.
Yeah, maybe that's possible.
If you're Milwaukee, you are a fool to put him out there. Because if he happens to go out there and play and give it an effort and try to inspire his team, you take the chance of your franchise player tearing his ACL up for real.
Yeah.
Because he stretched those ligaments to the limit. Okay,
sure.
seriously. He stretched his ligaments to the limit.
He's
There
like a
should have
Lasta
been-
man. If you ever see him,
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter,
All right.
John. He stretched those ligaments to the limit. And if you've ever had any kind of like ligament stretching or injury, you can't play. I'm sorry, you can't play. I mean, if he comes out there and he walks out there like Willis Reed, I'm like, hey man, hey, more power to you. But
RG3.
you'd be a fool to go out
structural
there.
damage.
You'd go out there. You'd be a fool.
Well, especially since he signed the max contract.
Because what if he goes out there and then makes a cut,
but that
slips on a wet spot,
but I just
walking from the bench to the game, and then blows his knee out. Now your franchise player is going to be out the whole next year, and then it's a mental thing of him coming back. We don't know his mental, how mentally tough he is. We know he's physically tough, but when you come back from an injury. There's a lot of people who tear their knees are not the same when they come back because it's a mental thing.
I know one thing. Trae Young is more hated in Milwaukee than Aaron Rodgers. I'm just going to tell you that.
Trae Young's hated everywhere now.
But it's amazing. Like
New York, he's taking on that villain role. He likes it.
I like Trae Young.
Yeah,
I like Trae Young.
I do too.
I like. Listen, when you talk trash,
little thing and
listen. You know what? When
it's
you
fine.
talk trash, you can back it up. He backs it
does.
up. And if you're gonna leave their best 3-point shooter wide open, and he's looking at you like, "Where you at?" and then he hits you with the little shimmy. That's on y'all.
Yeah, and Trae Young's just playing to the crowd. It's not like he gets in the press conference and starts ripping the other team.
No.
He's a classy guy.
Or he taunts the crowd.
Right.
Yeah. Like he doesn't taunt the crowd. I mean, the kid, he's a young kid. He's 22 years old. He's having fun, and he gives hope for every little kid out there who now thinks, hey, Trae Young's in the NBA. I can play in the NBA. So and then like when he took a bow in New York, I thought that was the coolest thing. Yeah. Well, that's after someone spit on him. So like when you spit, well, he's a bigger man than me because you spit on me, I'm going to the third row. You spit on me, oh, trust me, I'm going up there.
You're gonna find that.
Oh, dude, I'm choking you out.
By the way, Sam is in the Sriracha waiting room.
Sam,
I put him in the waiting room because it's not quite 11.
We're going to bring Sam in for a second, but Sam sometimes can give you an answer in the last 5 minutes. So I want to give Stacey. I want to give Stacey a chance to start the conversation about the whole Scottie Pippen thing. I mean, you were his teammate. I know he was one of your favorite teammates, and you've had great things to say. But come on. I mean, what's he doing? Listen,
all I'm gonna say with it, because I didn't want to get in the middle of that, because the fact that I love Scottie. I love Scottie as a teammate, as a person. Scottie wears his emotions on his sleeve, and the one thing about Scottie, if you like, from all of us that know from the inside, Scottie has no filter. Scottie will say what's on his mind,
especially with a bottle of bourbon in front of him.
Well, hey, give me another round, bartender. Nobody knows how dry I am. I'm not saying he was drinking. America was just singing the song. We're just having a little fun. But Scottie wears his emotions on his sleeve.
Right.
Okay. Obviously, The Last Dance didn't sit well with him.
No.
Okay. It didn't sit well with a lot of us who saw we're on the inside of that. That didn't sit well. So, and then you got to also factor in that, Scottie has never felt like he's got his due from me, not his teammates or the people that's closest to him, but to people like the media, all the media. He felt like he hasn't got his respect as being, a great player. I would always say this to him. I'm like, look, dude, you don't need validation from someone because you were the second best player on a championship caliber team. You created the point forward. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for Scottie, we wouldn't see Kevin Durant. We wouldn't see all these guys that are 6'7", 6'10", handling the ball, making passes, shooting the point forward. He is the creator of the point forward. And people don't give him credit enough for that. He really kind of revolutionized the small forward position because there's a guy who can not only, handle the ball, but defend anybody on the floor, 1 through 5. There's not a lot of guys that can do that, even in this era, that can guard a point guard, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Scottie could do all of that in a league where every one of those positions had a killer at it. Yeah. There was a killer at every one of those positions.
Scottie, you're right. He revolutionized that position, one of the 50 greatest players of all time. But maybe he's just trying to sell books or bourbon or whatever. But how can you say that play that Phil drew up was racial? I mean, how can you make that?
I was strong. Listen. I listen, Phil's a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Okay. Phil's a lot of things. Phil could be a jerk, he could be, the Zen master, he could be, a dick. I mean, just be honest. Every coach is like that. You're not going to have a great relationship with everybody you play with. Like I hated Billy Tubbs some days, but I love Billy Tubbs. I hated Phil. Me and Phil almost came to blows a few times.
Oh, you did, didn't you? On your workout.
Yeah. That's it. I don't know. Didn't we talk about that in another chapter?
We did.
But I never once looked at him as being racist.
Right.
Like I didn't like him for certain things, but then as I got older and I started realizing certain things, not one time did I think Phil Jackson was racist. Not one time did I think anybody in the Bulls organization was racist. Not one time. So to say that, Pip, I mean, you're the second best player. If this would have been the 9th or 10th, 11th man saying that, it's like, wow, he thought that. But you're the second greatest player on that. You were.
He was the best player on that team.
You were catered to. I mean, Pip was catered to on that team with MJ.
When is it enough? 6 rings, 50th, one of the 50th greatest players, a Hall of
Never
Fame.
enough.
I think it's the bourbon. I mean, because I was listening to the interviews driving back from Chicago.
Did you think he was drinking during that time?
What are you doing, Scottie? I've been at home drinking lots of bourbon. Like, all he wanted to say was that he was drinking bourbon. And I know he's trying to sell bourbon,
it, yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe
And listen, and I'm not in Scottie's head. Okay, so there's a lot of things that could contribute to the way he is right now. You had a son who passed away just recently. Your marriage has been up and down roller coaster in that environment. It's been brought out into the public eye, and people, like us, if we have marital problems, no one knows about it.
Right.
But him, everything is TMZ. It was this and that, National Enquirer. Yeah. And so you got that, and you got young kids who are being exposed to that. And then you have the Last Dance thing where you were portrayed as being basically a villain, or you weren't a team player.
Selfish.
You're selfish. Maybe
it's a cry for help.
You can see where he's coming from a little bit.
Yeah.
Is the bourbon any good?
I don't know. I don't drink
We'll
the
have
brown.
to find out. Next night show,
I don't drink the
we'll
brown.
get a bottle.
Yeah, let's pick some up.
I'll see if I can get a free bottle from Pip.
Trade some hot sauce.
We'll tell him we'll have a tasting test. We'll do a tasting test on air. So
hopefully not a morning.
Pip, if you listen in America, if you send us a bottle of Digits. Digits. I think that's the name of it, right? Digits?
It. Yeah. It is Digits.
Yeah. So send us a bottle of Digits. We'll let you know. We'll let you know how it is.
Well, Sam Smith has been waiting patiently in the Sriracha waiting room. We are going to bring him in next. Continue the conversation of Scottie Pippen, and does he have legitimate beefs about the way he was treated by Phil Jackson and the Bulls? That's next on Gimme the Hot Sauce. We are going to pick up the conversation right where we left off, talking about Scottie Pippen's curious charges earlier this week. We bring in the Hall of Fame writer Sam Smith, works for Bulls.com, New York Times bestseller, Jordan Rules. What other projects you want to plug, Sam, before we get into the conversation?
Stacey King's podcast.
Hot sauce.
Give me the hot sauce.
I'm told Wikipedia is making an edition now that I'm a appear on this. So it's exciting for my family. I know the family's excited.
Do they know how to find the podcast, Sam?
That's really what matters to me. And so this is it. This is the height. I'm a little frightened that when you reach your pinnacle, I mean, where else do I go now?
Nowhere but down, baby. Down.
So if you're listening to the podcast, you should switch over to YouTube. Make sure you can see Sam in his palatial Geneva estate.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I must say, it's good to see you, Mark. I haven't seen you in a long time. Good to hear you.
I've resurfaced in the media world. Do you know that? I'm doing some work at Channel 7 now.
I know. I sent you a note, which you ignored, I think.
Yeah, it does that a lot, Sam.
I think you sent something back, and you said, "Now I'm back. Don't bother me."
Yeah, don't bother. Lose the number, I think that's what I wrote.
Don't call me. I'll call you.
Hey, let's...
I did understand you're back.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Hey, let's get into this whole Scottie thing, because you got to know him very well over the years. We were surmising that maybe he had a couple of pulls off that bottle of bourbon that was in front of him, but I mean, Sam.
Say that on the air?
Yeah.
Oh, this is just a podcast.
Yeah, so you can say anything on this, Sam. Okay. So I almost got the impression when I was watching the Dan Patrick interview that Scottie got confused, that I don't really think that he meant to say that it was racially motivated, that the pass to Pippen, and then Dan Patrick tried to let him off the hook by saying, well, are you calling Phil Jackson a racist? And Scottie had the opportunity to kind of smooth it over and say, well, that's not really what I meant, and he doubled down on it. What did you make of that whole exchange?
Well, of course, in the documentary last year, the Last Dance thing, he doubled down on on it again. Where he had 30 years to say, well, I really probably, on second thought, I
Right.
should have been in the game. And he said, no, he's still glad. And it's amazing that that we continue, unfortunately, to litigate this 1.8 second 8-second thing. But like when I was talking a little bit with Stacy yesterday, there's this sort of ambivalence because we all sort of feel badly for Scottie, that this is not this is not sort of the guy all the time. Now my relationship with Scottie, it used to be great. In fact, he asked me to write his book in 1995, and we had a contract, and then he changed his mind as he's wanted to do. And we had a good I'll tell you, this is sort of an odd story, and I'm a little embarrassed myself. But Scottie is angry with me, and of all things, I didn't even know this until somebody sent me a tweet. And they said, look up this tweet. It had to do with this thing, with Dan Patrick. And it was on Scottie's Twitter, and he blocked me from his Twitter.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even know how to use Twitter. But when Skiles got fired, I think it was 2008, Scottie had called me late at night one night, about a week afterwards, and said, I want to be coach of the Bulls. I should be coach of the Bulls. And I said, well, Scottie is a knowledgeable, basketball guy. As far as he wanted to work that hard, no. But, I said, well, you never coached, you wouldn't be the guy they would go after. Now they got Derrick Rose, all this sort of stuff. Well, no, that's when they got the pick.
Yep.
But he still had Kirk and Ben and Lou, and it still was a good team. And actually, it was this odd off season where all of a sudden they're at 49 wins, 48 wins, and they missed the playoffs. But Scott, that's a different story. When Scott's done with a team, he's done, and so he just leaves. So I said, well, I had an experience, and he made a good point. He said, well, look, Byron Scott, he's coached. He didn't have an experience. He mentioned a couple other NBA guys who've never coached. Like now we see, Steve Nash all of a sudden's a coach, and Chauncey Billups. So I said, all right. He said, I want you to write a story. Can you write a story? And I said, I will. I said, well, what would you do, if you were the Bulls coach? And he mentioned a couple of things which were not positive, but the team wasn't good. And he said, well, Kirk Heinrich is fine, but he's not a point guard. He's playing out of position. He mentioned a couple other things. And so it came out as critical of the Bulls. And he's blamed me since then for costing them the job.
Wow.
I've run into him since then, and he said, I would have been coach of the Bulls if not for you.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Which is cause like lunacy.
Yeah.
So there's this anger that we've seen with Scottie all the time, at irrational times. But I do want to add, it's been a tough year for Scottie.
Yeah.
And we don't know what goes on in someone's life, but his oldest child died, suddenly, accidentally. He got a divorce, and however things go on in that life, LA, everything, his wife was pretty public about it in an embarrassing way. And so, we see the snippets on TV, and, everybody ends up judging people based on the last thing they sort of saw on TV. And, there's a lot more depth to going on to someone's life. And, those of us, and especially Stacy, even in the locker room, with him, we know the decency with Scottie, but we also know that he's had these episodes constantly. I remember one of my favorite stories. We had, this was maybe a couple of years, they hadn't won any championships yet, a couple of years in. And of course he was, for various reasons about his contract, and, went over again in the Last Dance. So we were in Boston, and he was upset about something with the contract with Krause. He was, they were all always set with Krause. And he just goes, we're sitting in the locker room in Boston, and Stacy remembers that old Boston Garden locker room with the windows open in the winter. and the heat, over your head and the pipes and
showers don't work, cold water.
Yeah, everything. And so he just sort of goes off on Krause. He just starts ripping Krause and the worst GM, and the Bulls will never win because of him. And so, of course, we all wrote stories and come back the next morning. We come into the multiplex for practice, and probably Mark Shinowski has now showed up because he's not on the road. There's only a couple of us on the road, me and Lacey and Kent McDill, and nobody, back then before the Bulls were, the Bulls were, it was the Bears and whatever, going on. The Cubs had made the world playoffs or something in '89, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, so now all the TV trucks, radio, everybody's shown up at the Berto, at the Berto Center. Yeah, it was beyond the multiplex at the Berto Center. So Phil had later told me this story. Scottie walks in and he goes up to Phil and says, "Why is all that media here? Did something happen? Was there a trade?" Phil goes, "Well, no, they're here for you." And Scottie goes, "Why?"
Oh my God.
Well, it was all that what's in the newspaper, what you said last night. He said, "What'd I say?" So there's that element to him too. He and I bring that up because he more than any athlete I've ever been around has this incredible, unique ability to get by these events or incidents, whatever you call them, that could ruin someone's career. The migraine headache, Game 7 of the conference finals, sitting on the sideline with a towel over his head. Pistons players were going over. I don't know if you guys remember. They were going over and taking pictures of Pippen with a towel on his head, pointing, laughing at him. And of course they lose. They get blown out in that game. Players don't recover from stuff like, from things like that. 1.8 seconds. What player do you ever remember? I mean, he's brought it on him again. But what player do you ever remember? Great players done that, and Hall of Famer, top 50 all time, and he's going to be celebrated again. The NBA is going to do the top 75 next year at the All-Star game. I'm pretty sure, and they're going to add 25 to that, and they're going to invite the other 50 or whoever's left at that. And of course, he'll be there. He'll be part of that again. So he has all these incredible outrages, and then comes out on the other side of it. You remember after the 1.8, they had the big blow up in the locker room afterwards, and Bill Cartwright upset. And the next game, and the media, I think it was a Friday, and the next game was on a Sunday. Back in the stadium, or in the United Center, whichever it was. And the media is all over Pippen. There's critical columns and quit on the team and all. And then he shows up and he plays a great game. They win the game, and they say, "Hey, we love Scottie. He's back." And he goes on and the same that last season, when he wouldn't have the surgery because he didn't want to mess up his summer.
Right.
And then we're on the trip. That's right. He wasn't going to play the first 3 months. But they had the circuit, the circus trip in November, and of course he wanted to get out of Chicago with the rest of us because we're in LA and Seattle and we're all over the West Coast. So he comes on the trip even though he can't play, and then he sits in the locker room one day and says, "I'm never going to play for the Bulls again for the rest of my life. I hate the Bulls and all this stuff." And Phil and Michael got like, "What's this?" And 2 months later, he's back in the starting lineup on making a run to another championship. like Stacy and I, when Stacy called me yesterday and was gracious enough to invite me because it is a kind of an exclusive thing. I said to Stacy, didn't 20 years ago, we were thinking that this is the conversations we were going to be having about Rodman?
Yeah, exactly.
Not the other Bulls. So anyway, he's had this, this series of, what should be crippling events to your career or your reputation, and it's always come out the other side of him. So he has this amazing ability as a survivor with it, and also I put in perspective of the context of, he's had a lot of stuff go on in his life, and we really don't know. But you did mention about the Patrick thing. It looked to me, when it looked like it looked like he was reading something, So it looked like somebody had written something down for him, and it probably was like the liquor people.
Yeah, I would guess.
Yeah.
Of course, you figure in that business, they're drunk all the time.
When you look at The Last Dance, which all of us saw at least once, I know Scottie was upset with his portrayal in The Last Dance. What did you think? Did you think that the portrayal of Scottie Pippen was as bad as that? That Scottie might have thought it was, how he was portrayed by Michael in that piece, because we all know that was Michael's perspective. That was Michael's telling it how he saw it, and that's pretty much what everybody went with. So, but Scottie's portrayal in there didn't look very good to some of us. So, did you think he was portrayed a little bit harshly?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I know he was upset about it. I had later heard, I think part of it was that he didn't get paid for his interview and Phil did. So I think that provoked some of his upset about it. Look, I mean, it like you said, Stacy, it was Michael's story. It wasn't Scottie's story. It was, it was allegedly going to be, The Last Dance, and they were going to do the last, the Bulls thing, but it was Michael Jordan's production. It was Jordan. But 97, 98, there was a NBA Entertainment film crew around that whole season. When they were here, when they announced that they were going to do this, I thought it was just going to be a story on a documentary on that last season. I didn't realize it was going to be, the Bulls, that whole run and Jordan's career and all that sort of stuff. But they had this film, and everybody kind of, they were around, and we all had to sign releases. How you guys, make me sign releases whenever I do something. We all had to sign releases that year. But what I heard was Jordan was the only one, of course, who didn't sign the release. And he finally, they were able to do this when he finally did the release. And like a lot of people have speculated, LeBron James, was getting a lot of talk about he's the greatest of all time. So, maybe it was time to show Michael's history. But so as a result of that, it became Michael's story. They were the executive producers. And despite what the ESPN people said, the producers said, Michael and his staff people, I know, Mark has people. Some of us don't have people.
Mark's big time.
That's right.
Now call Mark sometime, and he always says that. He said, "Give my people a call, and we'll set something up." But anyway, and so, and I know, and actually, that's why I was surprised. I remember when I went and did the interview, I didn't think they were going to use it because Michael had approval, and we had a uneasy history after the Jordan rules. I mean, we've been fine. I've run into him a couple of times in Charlotte, and he's always very nice and everything. But we're not chatting like we did in the past, say. But they had approval on all the interviews, who was going to be in, who was going to be out. And after they saw the interviews, they decided which ones to keep and which ones to drop. So it was his story. And a friend of Scottie said to me, one of the highlights during that run was, the mailman doesn't deliver on Sunday, when they had, Scottie sort of trash talk Carmelo. He missed the 2 free throws, the key at the end. And how come that wasn't in it? And I said, well, it was Michael's story. It wasn't Scottie's story. So, that's just, we all had to live with Michael's view of the world. Like I've said to some people, they asked me about it, and they said, well, what did you think about documentary? I thought, as we all thought was great, going over all that history and having a chance to review it all. But I said, it's like a lot of those TV movies. It was based on a true story. Everything wasn't exactly how it happened, but it was Michael's view, and also, to feature it as sort of, Michael's upside. So, it wasn't going to focus on, some of the best things Scottie did, because it was supposed to be about the best things Michael did, which was okay because he was the center, the center of everything, as Stacey well knows, being in that locker room.
Hey, but Sam, during the Dan Patrick interview with Scottie, he went on to say that famous exchange with Steve Kerr before the 5th championship, where he said, if they come off, you be ready. And Scottie suggested that Michael position the cameras, and that was fake, that he was just playing to the cameras for his documentary. I mean, I don't know if that was after another long draw of bourbon or whatever, but what are you talking about?
Yeah. No, and Yeah, I know. I mean, I know that we know the story, but I know the story beyond the story because if you went back to if you watch it, if you went and got the tape of that game, right before the, and I think it was the year before the previous series, that same situation came up. And they got Jordan into a turnover because they doubled off, they doubled off and Stockton, came off. And so he knew, from the previous time, and really it was an example of Jordan's basketball IQ and how good he was at that he remembered that circumstance because of the play the way they defended him before. So he knew Stockton was going to come. So he was telling Kerr, this is what they did last time. It really was a complete basketball situation where Michael was, the way you watch these games now and they break down every second. And when you see the stories, people put video on, stuff we couldn't do. And even if we could, I didn't know how, but it was a great game tape that Michael basically was explaining a game tape. So no, of course that didn't happen that way. But when Scottie gets on a roll like that, he's on a roll.
It's like John Belushi in Animal House. He's on a roll.
The unfortunate part about it, as Stacey, we were talking about a little bit. This is a terrible time in the world, in this country, to be accusing anybody of race. It's like a capital crime now, and America has this awful history of this kind of stuff, from like the Salem witch trials, which they weren't witches, I think, as we finally figured out, to the McCarthy Reds baiting scare and all this, and interning Japanese and Germans during World War II, American citizens. So, especially in this time, in this environment, that's the one thing. I mean, you don't want to get into that debate about, I won't use the politically incorrect, but like we used to say, like when did you stop setting arson fires, kind of thing. Well, that means you are starting arson. You don't bring up that to anybody, so we have to defend, everybody comes out, well, it's Phil a racist, well, you shouldn't be having that discussion at all. It's completely unjustified. And that's the worst part of it, that in this particular environment, this really incendiary environment that we have now of division, you never bring up something like that about anybody, unless, not that, there are plenty of people who are, but maybe deserve it for the people who actually are, blatantly doing something, but, not somebody sitting in their cabin in Montana.
Sam, do you see Phil Jackson or MJ coming out and making a statement about what was said, what's going to be said through Scottie's books? Because I'm sure there's going to be a whole hell of a lot more that's going to come out of that book. But do you see those guys making a statement, and especially Phil, since you've been, called a racist? Do you see him coming out and making a statement about what Scottie said?
No, just like a lot of you guys, I know Stacey probably talked to a number of your teammates, and nobody's really weighing in. And I think this is one you don't want to weigh in. You don't want to get in the middle of, when somebody's, when the social media, monster starts getting involved in something like this, you don't want to be in the middle, in that thresher and shoot up in it. So, I think that's why most of the Bulls players, I think a lot, I think a lot of those players, as you probably know or found out of talking to guys, are horrified by what's going on, but they don't want to dip their toe into this either. So I don't expect Phil, and certainly not Michael, to get involved, or Phil either. I keep in touch with Phil, and I saw him actually in April. I was out in LA and had lunch with him, just before he left for Montana. But I've hesitated to contact him. I really didn't even want to go over this with him because, what there's nothing you can say in these kind of things where you end up, either having the last word or either it turns out that worthwhile for you to get involved. So, unfortunately, Scottie's got, and that's the other part, and it's the unfortunate part too, because Scottie's got, well, two things. First, as far as Phil, it's really unfortunate because Phil did as much for Scottie as anybody ever did. And, one of the things, it always looked like Scottie was this perfect player, and Phil obviously did position him, gave him the ball, took it out of Michael's hands, changed the makeup of the way the team played. But Phil's specialty was, human nature, human relations. Was one reason why he was so successful. And he recognized Scottie couldn't deal with or couldn't take or wasn't good with direct criticism. So he criticized Horace. He always used to yell at Horace for Scottie's mistakes. Later on, he yelled at Tony for Scottie's mistakes. But so he wouldn't have to hold Scottie up to really, so he understood, Scottie's background growing up, 10 siblings, 2 rooms. I mean, who knows what many of, I'm sure most of us have no idea what that's like, rural Arkansas. But more than that, the thing that always is the most remarkable about Pippen, because he's got the most incredible basketball story, because everybody's comes from hardships, and you hear all the stories. Nobody came from a hardship like him, and I'm not the 10 kids in the 1 or 12 people in the 2 rooms in rural Arkansas, but he was on a work study. He didn't get a basketball scholarship. He was on a work study program. A friend got him a work study, and he was the towel kid. As a freshman in college, he was handing out the towels in the locker room to the basketball players.
Right.
He wasn't even on the team, basically. He played pickup with these guys. And we're not talking about handing out the towels at like North Carolina or at Duke, but Central Arkansas. So, I mean, how far away from, pro basketball could you be than he was? No AAU, no in front of the scouts. And so he does have an amazing story from where he comes, but that all gets obscured by all this lunacy that he ends up spouting and arguing about. And so he really, I mean, I think there is, and that's why, I was, willing to do that book with him to help him, because, I recognize it was a great story, as opposed to getting into all this, 1.8 second or whatever the controversies he's gotten into over the years, kind of obscures this amazing story.
Sam, I'm sure at the beginning of the year you nailed it. You had the Phoenix Suns playing the Atlanta Hawks for the NBA championship. Does this give Bulls fans hope that it can be done if you had that elusive point guard to run the show?
So if you add a Hall of Famer point guard.
Right. That helps. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's the yes and no, because yes, they are the Phoenix Suns, just missed the playoffs 10 straight years.
Right.
A high scoring shooting guard who everybody said was a loser until this year that you can't win with. So there's that element, but then it of course applies pressure to you, because your owner will look at it and say, well, if all those guys could be in the finals, why can't we?
Right.
So there's probably a dozen owners saying that team of, Charlotte and Washington and, any number of this, Sacramento's. I mean, I've really been disappointed in what's going on. It's unfortunate, mostly injuries.
Yeah, the injuries have been terrible. Yeah.
There's more all-stars out in these playoffs. But, like last night, 3 of the 4 starters, I think, for the Clippers wouldn't start for the Bulls.
Right.
Terrence Mann, I'm not quite sure who he is. Patrick Beverly was, completely nuts and certainly not an NBA starter. Yeah. DeMarcus Cousins hadn't played in 2 or 3 years, I don't think. The indictment would have been as if they didn't beat him.
Right.
And so I'll be honest, I watch because I have no life. And so I do that, but I think it's been awful. After the early rounds were great. I loved the first round into the second round because, you had potential upsets. You had the great players playing, and there's sort of this irony to this. And a lot of, friends of mine have said, or a friend, I don't have friends, I have a friend. But they say, well, we're glad the super teams are not involved, Brooklyn, get out. and then of course in the next breath they say, well, how can we get Kawhi? And so I like the super teams. I mean, I want to see the best, the best against the best. I don't want to see Kevin Herter and several of those European, and I like Europe, and I think America.
Careful now, Sam.
But I don't care about Gallinari and Bogdanovich, and they're all just guys. We've been down on Larry. He's as good as those guys. Those guys are not better than he is. And so. These are really. It's the injuries and the circumstances, I know, but these are off. This is the worst play. This is the worst conference finals in the history of the league. I mean, this is really bad basketball because it's just barely, average players, and there's not many good players involved anymore. And usually that's what excellence is about. So I guess my question would be, if it were January, would you be watching some of these games?
No, probably not.
No.
These players. So because they're happening in June, July, whatever month we are, does it make it special? The irony too, the other part comes out of it is that, and I guess, that's a product of the current media, but one day I'm listening to a debate about, Donovan Mitchell is the best Jazz of all time.
Yeah.
Somebody has a good game, and Chris Paul is like the third best point guard of all time, and so these incredible judgments get made with every game. Yeah, I know Chris Paul got 40 points and he had a great game, but you couldn't recognize the guys he was playing against. He wasn't playing against any like real players. I went back to check one of my favorite series. Rivalries. I grew up in New York, and so watching the Knicks and the old Bullets when they had Earl Monroe and Wes Unseld, they had these. It was 5 positions, 5 great matchups. It was almost 5 Hall of Famers against 5 Hall of Famers. The Busher and Bradley, Frazier, Monroe, Unseld, Gus Johnson. And so, I remember them as great series. And, we talk about all the players today. And so, Reed averaged in the playoff series against Baltimore like 28 and 15. But he averaged it against the Hall of Famer. He averaged it against Wes Unseld, who averaged like 18 and 25. Frazier averaged like 28 and 12. And you see mentions about the greatest, and these guys don't even get mentioned. Lou Hudson, remember Lou Hudson?
Yeah, I do.
I'm getting old and all that. And he played with Archie Clark at Minnesota. Well, actually, Archie Clark was the guy when the Bullets traded Monroe to the Knicks, and they said, Monroe and Frazier couldn't play together in the early 70s. They got Archie Clark. And then that next year, they played the Bullets. The Knicks played the Bullets in the playoffs. And Archie Clark averaged 29 a game. He scored more than 35 in 3 of the 6 games.
Wow.
And no one's heard of it. You say, well, what happened if somebody like now averaged 29 again, not only just 29, but against Walt Frazier, who, when Willis Reed was hurt in Game 7 against Wilt, West, and Baylor, had 36 and 19 in the clinching Game 7. Nobody, it never even gets mentioned. Nobody mentions these things.
Yeah, the only time they mention Walt Frazier is when he's wearing a leopard suit or whatever.
Right. So I'm just saying, there's been extraordinary performances through the history of the game. Not just everything that's happened yesterday, but every time that there's somebody does something in a game, it's like, oh my God, we've never seen anything like this. And Chris Paul is now better than Magic and Isaiah. And, Anyway, that's just to get off my lawn, old man ramble. And by the way, stay off my lawn if you come over.
So when you look at the Bulls this year with the new management and the new coaching staff, Sam, and how would you grade them on their first season? Understanding that they got off to a slow start with the COVID and everything, but how would you judge them, and how's the future looking for this new organization?
Is this a Bulls podcast?
No, it's a
Make-
Stacey King podcast.
It's everything podcast, baby.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. I would judge it as a honeymoon. It may have been a good season. It wasn't a good season. It was disappointing because of the elements we just mentioned. How are all those teams in the playoffs and the Bulls couldn't get to 10?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know they had circumstances, but everybody had circumstances. And, so I like what they did because I'm glad they're not using another number 7 pick or another number 8 pick, so the deal for Vucevic, I love that deal. I love getting a guy, I just felt, well, I thought Paxson and Florian did a lot of good things. And, they had two, John had 2 great runs, with, the Dang, Ben Gordon, Heinrich group. And, we saw that stat a couple of times with, the last champion to be swept in the playoffs was the Bulls when they knocked off Miami, and then of course the run with Rose and Thibodeau and all that stuff in the early 2000s before Derek got hurt and, extended a couple of years. So there was a lot of great runs, but they were very conservative, as far as picks and stuff like that. And so, I like the fact that, these guys are so willing to step out and take advantage of opportunity. And, 2-1s, I don't ever remember the Bulls. Jerry Krause too believed in keeping your picks and, and that's the way they built the team. They obviously, not all the picks were great, but, Grant and Pippen and, worked out. And
how about Stacey King? Did that work out all right?
And Stacey King was 3-time champion. As was BJ.
Checks in the mail, Sam. Checks in the mail.
No. So I mean, those guys did build. They build. The foundation of one of the great dynasties in the history of the league. So the picks did work then, but unfortunately, with what's going on, the Bulls followed the model of supposedly what you were supposed to do, which the fans were all for, as I recall from my mail. Yeah, let's lose games and all this sort of stuff, which I'm not a fan of, but, I understood what was going on. And so they were losing games on purpose, basically. And then didn't get lucky. If they got lucky, they'd have a Zion or, they'd have had
Luka.
Right, Luka or Trae Young, who I know they really liked that year. I knew, Mark, you were around. You remember that?
Yeah.
There was always talk about Trae Young, and they just didn't get lucky, and they ended up, with 7s, and 7s are good in Vegas, maybe at times, but not in the lottery.
Yeah.
And so getting 8 again, I'm glad. I'm glad they're not picking 8, and I'm glad now I don't have to pay much attention to the draft.
There you go.
So I'm glad what they did. I think what they did will work going forward. They should have been better this season than they were. And I don't want to indict him because I think he's going to be really good, Patrick Williams. But, and Stacey mentioned this on the broadcast many times too. He should not have been starting all those games. He did not know how to play basketball. And he may learn how to play basketball. But, I read something about this in one of my, I do this Q&A things at times where obviously I know you guys don't read it, but just to keep me busy in the off season.
I never miss an Ask Sam. Never miss it.
So you would know more. Yeah. When the previous generation of players like Stacey's maybe, or no, after that we're growing up, the picture on the poster on the wall was Michael and Kobe. And that was about attack the basket, get, score. The next generation, Patrick's generation, was LeBron. And LeBron's thing was always like, I'm going to make the right play. Make the right play.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a chance to dunk on the last play of the game, pass to the corner because you might get a 3. And these kids have been indoctrinated that way. And I always heard this with Patrick Williams saying all the time, I got to make the right play. Well, no, when Kyle Lowry is guarding you, which is all the team started doing, putting the smallest defender on you, and he runs at you, you don't pass the ball. You run him over and you dunk on him, or you get to the line. And so the offense got, I understand, Billy probably didn't have much choice. They wanted him in there. They wanted him to get experience. But the whole offense continued to get compromised all the time because they kept turning off good shots. The kid was in there 35 minutes a game or something, and he kept giving up the ball. He wouldn't shoot it. He wouldn't go to the basket. How many times, Stacey, did you say, you gotta be aggressive. You gotta take your shot. You said it every game. Now, it was a joy in some respects. Not the only. I did enjoy being at the games, and it was kind of my social life. But for a season, I got to listen to Stacey every single game.
What a pleasure! What a pleasure!
Exactly. So now I heard this. I heard you telling him every game, Stacey, go to the basket, shoot the ball.
Yeah.
And so I was, and I'm faulting him. I'm not saying him. Zach got COVID, and a lot of other guys got, contact tracing, which was BS. A lot of that contact tracing was very arbitrary. And if you went back, I'd like somebody to go back and check that. But it seemed to me mostly role players got fell into contact tracing, and the stars didn't.
Yeah.
So they seemed very arbitrarily done for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of other stuff that went on, big trade, in the middle of the season. But that said, I was disappointed because I really wanted to see them in at least one of these games,
Yeah. I think we all did. I think we all wanted to see that.
I was personally disappointed, but I think they're a lot better set up going forward than they would have been. So in that sense, I think the season was a success because they're going to be better than if they had just stood pat and waited on that pick. It was just disappointing that they couldn't, get that low bar of 10.
Well, for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the sunshine pouring into Sam's room there. So we're going to let you go out, Sam, maybe hit some golf balls and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining us on Gimme the Hot Sauce with your insight on Scottie Pippen, and hopefully the Bulls can follow in the footsteps of the Suns and Hawks and miraculously turn things around next season.
It sounded like I talked too much because you cut me off early. You said, yeah, we'll definitely want to keep you.
Sam, you're the best. The Hall of Famer, Sam Smith.
You got his book.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks. Good to see you
Right over
again.
your shoulder.
Good seeing you,
That's
bud.
right.
Jordan Rules is
Jordan
right over your
Rules,
shoulder.
one of the great books of all time. Our guest, Sam Smith. We're coming back to go off the wall on Gimme the Hot Sauce. Always a lot of fun to catch up with the Hall of Fame writer Sam Smith. He writes, of course, for Bulls.com, so follow him there, and always gives us some great perspectives on history and some great insight on Scottie Pippen. Want to give a shout out to our great friends at Bubble Up, the Cloud Reimagined. Bubble Up is the new way to visualize and organize any kind of content all in one place. So download the Bubble Up app today.
A lot in the folder. There's a lot in the folder.
There's a lot in the folder, but I got a
research.
special shout out. Can I give a special?
Yeah,
shout out?
absolutely.
Okay. I like to send a special shout out to my little friend Emma Corcoran. She's a little talented little young lady. She's 9 years old. She can sing.
Wow.
She can dance. And she has a special thing that she likes me to say.
Okay.
Oh, Daddy. That's what she likes me to say. No. That's what she says, okay? No, she wanted me to say that because I tease her. No.
This is the Off the Wall segment.
Southside, don't even go there. Stop. Get off the mic, okay? So that's a special shout out to the little talented Emma. She's very talented. She's a singer. She's a dancer.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of personality. And special shout out to her big sister Cam, too. Just want to throw that out there, too.
All right. Hey, Emma.
Hey.
Give me the hot sauce.
Well, I don't think. No.
Give me the hot sauce.
No, give me the hot sauce. No.
Special
That
give me the
doesn't
hot
sound
sauce.
right. Doesn't even sound
Shout
right.
out.
And she'll like it, too. That doesn't even sound right either.
Wow.
That isn't right. See?
X Factor.
See, you people are sick. I don't know why I work with you people. You people are sick.
You know, I think we should cue up the rifles, do a little rapid fire. What do you think? As we mentioned, we are recording this on July 1st. The calendar flips over to July as we're in the heat of summer. It's also a special day in the world of sports for a very odd reason. For some reason, the New York Mets decided to give Bobby Bonilla, who was a slugging outfielder first baseman back in the day, $1 million every July 1st. Is it in perpetuity or is there
No, 35.
35,
But
yeah,
you know
so-
who was involved in that? Bernie Madoff.
Oh, is that right?
So I'm
so is
thinking,
he still getting the money?
No, well, I'm assuming.
Is the check going to bounce?
Well, I'm assuming when they said, "Hey, we owe Bobby Bonilla $5 million," he said, "I probably don't have the $5 million. Let's just make it an annuity and make it." Think about it, that's $35 million.
That's crazy.
Plus interest.
Yeah, he's making a lot more money than a lot of the rookies in Major League Baseball. That's for sure.
I ain't hating him.
No, it's smart.
That was a smart move on his part because it goes all the way like 2035.
2035.
Wow.
Crazy.
And Bobby Bonilla was originally drafted by the White Sox, and then he went on to play with Toronto and the Mets. And he was a really good player. And say with the Pirates, with Barry Bonds,
great
that
player.
twosome they went to the playoffs.
There was a
every year.
stretch where he was one of the better baseball players in the game.
And he's getting paid like
And he's still getting paid like him. He's
probably
still getting paid it.
55. Well, how old is he now? About 55, 60?
Yeah, he's in his 50s.
I'm going to contact Bobby and see if he'll come out to the wiffle ball challenge.
Yeah, see if he can hit the
58.
See if he hit the stinger
the wiffle
stuff.
ball.
By the way, shout out to camera guy Riz, because I said, I have not. I'm on headset, so I go, nobody's challenged me yet, and they go, yeah, because we're not 10.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Amen.
Good comeback. Oh.
Hey, did I see you bought some more stuff from the basement? You got a Paul Molitor thing?
Actually, it's not from the basement.
Yeah.
It's it was Paul Molitor Day, or Paul Molitor.
Oh, a little Molly.
And that's really a little Molly.
And
That is a little Molly.
And I think from now on, for the rest of the summer, I'd like to, instead of Stinger, can I just go by?
And you got a shout out on the broadcast that you were
I did.
directing.
Brian Anderson,
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian Anderson.
He was
shouted out.
so
And
excited.
Billy Schroeder backed up your story about how good you were during the fantasy
and,
camp.
and Cecil Cooper.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I was okay.
My phone was blowing up from Southside Susan.
I was pretty good.
She even taped the.
I tell you what, BA
She even
gives,
taped the interview.
unlike working with
I'm like,
Neil
good God.
and Stacy, where you get thrown under the bus.
Hey!
Not by you, but by Neil. Brian Anderson, man, that guy loves saying my name on the air. So hey, he's a great dude. And
Listen, man, I've always been a supporter of the Stinger.
Yes, you have.
Okay, I've always supported the Stinger. Okay?
Yes, you have.
Hey, can we
I've
throw
only
out
thrown him. I've only thrown him to the bus like maybe 50 times
Hey, can we throw out
over
the
8
challenge?
years. That's over 8 year period. Not like in 1 year. That's like over 8 year period. And I'm
pretty good
being
average.
honest. I'm being honest. But Neil does it all the time.
Yeah.
So
Hey, hit the rifles again. Let's talk a little more baseball.
let's do it.
What'd you guys make of the whole Lucas Giolito, Josh Donaldson thing? Wasn't that crazy? I mean, Josh Donaldson gets on a Zoom session and just starts trashing Lucas Giolito, saying, he doesn't have the sticky stuff anymore, so his pitches aren't moving. And then he hits a home run the next day. Ozzie Guillen got involved in the pre and post game show, saying if I was the manager, I'd throw at him. That's good old baseball fun there.
Yeah, when you make those kind of accusations on people and there hasn't been, it's just, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, you're going to get a high fastball up in the ear hole. You charge them out, you get a two-piece. Yeah. Seriously, like that's like, he's been outspoken about that because didn't he say something about the Yankees pitchers having,
Garrett Cole.
Garrett Cole was doing it, and he's just calling everybody out. It's like, dude, like you can't do that. I mean, unless it's been proven, it's a proven fact of the person. All these pitchers have been doing it since the turn of time. Come
That's
on, man.
for sure.
I mean, it's not something that just happened this year.
You remember the story Darren Sutton told about his dad?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gaylord Perry, all this stuff he had.
But then Josh Donaldson going after Ozzie Guillen, who, of course, is working on the broadcast, doing the pre and post, and Ozzie is not going to, he said if I was managing now, he'd be in a lot of trouble. And then he also pointed out, and Josh Donaldson talks about how much a better player he was than me. Well, I got 600 more career hits than he does. So, Ozzie got a chance to fire back at him, and Ozzie's not going to back down from a challenge. And the Twins losing the first two games of that series, they're dead and buried. They're going to be selling off. I mean,
big time.
They had a great year last year, but it's done for them.
Sox, baby.
Injuries,
Sox.
Sox, and unfortunately on the other side of town.
Yeah, I was going to say the other team that might be done is the Chicago Cubs, who've lost 6 games in a row to fall 6 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers. I mean, they were tied for first place a week ago, and now they're 6 games out. In the finale of that series at American Family Field on Wednesday, they had a 7-0 lead in the first inning. And I read something. They were the first team ever to lead by 7 runs and then lose by 7 or more.
Up by 7 and down by 7 before the 4th inning since 1901.
It's crazy.
1901.
Yeah, and it's great to take shots of the Cubs fans leaving the ball. We had good fun with that. And in
that first game, there were so many Cubs fans.
and then they left
They're
early.
always
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and
They
then
always travel to Milwaukee, though.
Yeah,
they do.
It's a shame thing in Milwaukee because people get very upset that Milwaukee fans sell their tickets to Cubs fans. Like, what do they call it? Wrigley Field of the North. Like,
Yeah.
and it's shameful because you'll go to a Cubs Brewer game
I used to
and
get
it's
great
all
seats
Cub
when I
fans.
like back in like 1990
Right.
when the Cubs would go up there. I would go up there to watch them play. You get great seats
It's
up
a
there
lot
watching.
cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper. Exactly.
well, the organization tried to make you show proof of Wisconsin
They did,
residency.
yeah.
Did they? Are they still doing that,
I
or
don't
do
know
they
if they're
waive
still,
that?
they
No.
tried.
Everybody needs the money
Hey,
now.
listen,
Yeah.
everybody needs the money right there.
pandemic.
Nobody's turning down nothing
So
but a
it's-
collar.
But people buy season tickets and then they'll sell just the
Yeah,
Cubs games
yeah.
and they pay for their season tickets like twice over.
That's what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, that was ugly. And now you look at the situation the Cubs are in, there's been a lot of speculation they might try to sell off some of their prospective free agents, guys like Javi Baez and Chris
Rizzo.
Bryant and Anthony Rizzo.
Yep.
Now, if you're Jed Hoyer, the general manager, you got to be looking hard at this and saying, maybe I should cash these guys in, get some prospects, and start this thing all over again.
That's tough to do, man, because, Chris Bryant is still playing at a high level. Rizzo.
It's always hurt, though.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I liken it to basketball. Like, you got your core group of guys that still have potentially to be very good. It'd be tough for me to get rid of those guys, man. I mean, it just would be. Baseball's a lot different because you get the farm system and you can develop people in the farm system. The Cubs didn't even have a farm system before, Theo and those guys came. They were just basically going out buying, high price
Alfonso
Soriano, just stealing, coming in there like Jesse James with a mask on.
But it's
Well, the thing is,
robbing
still the
them.
Cubs is they have not developed any pitching.
No.
They always
it's
have to
over.
go out and buy.
It's over.
And
starting
how about
pitchers.
was it Darvish? Darvish is like,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
he
yeah.
sucked on the Cubs.
Yeah.
Well, that was
And
the
then-
first white flag thing when they
Yeah.
traded Darvish to
Man.
San Diego.
And then he's in San Diego, like, man, throwing like gas.
Yep.
And just unbelievable pitching. I'm like, why didn't he do that here?
Well, he
Well,
was
he
good
did.
last year.
He
I mean,
did.
he was runner-up for the Cy Young last
did.
year.
Yeah.
Man, why did they let him go?
Well, I mean,
Money.
and
They
I
didn't
think
want
that's
a
why they
long-term
didn't sign
contract.
Rizzo. And there's no way they're going to keep all three. I mean, Rizzo didn't play a single, didn't even make an appearance in the Brewers series.
Yeah,
I know
his back is acting up
framed up,
again.
but I mean, you're playing the team now that's
Right.
you got to chase. And Bryant played only the one game. He had his bat in his hand in the dugout. They never put him up there. They put some journeyman Leviton catcher in a very crucial situation.
And he got hurt. Yeah.
And he got hurt.
Cubs fans,
But-
we're sorry. We're not talking about you anymore.
But I
We're moving the conversation to the other side, South side.
That's South
We're going to
side.
South side.
South
Sorry,
side.
Cubs fans. We love you. We wish your team was doing better, but they fell out of first place, and we're moving on.
And
we're
we'd like
jumping
to-
off the bandwagon. Woo!
we'd like to get
Go.
back to that umpires
pitchers?
checking foreign
Yeah,
substance.
are you guys okay with the umpires going to the mound and like people dropping their pants? And
No, it's gotten out of hand.
it's
It's crazy.
terrible. I want a
Yeah,
commando.
I don't wanna see that.
I think the whole thing would end if somebody would drop their trout and just.
You're
Commando.
you looking for that
I
South
am
side?
looking for a commando. Display.
Yeah, South side. We showing a little freaky side on the podcast.
I
John, you walking around with a thong and a little banana
there you
strap?
go.
I might have to.
Banana package? What are you doing?
I might have to.
You talking about their anniversary last week or what?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on over there,
Something
buddy.
low cut mesh. I mean, maybe
I
something
don't
like that.
know. Some Hooter shorts? Oh, man.
Pause button.
Hey, buddy.
Come
Oh,
on, Jimmy, where are
Lord.
you at? Come
Susan,
on,
what's
Jimmy.
going on over there? What's going on over the Walsh house? What's this?
I think that would end it. I think,
Yeah, oh, man.
Just one.
Well,
It's ended for me.
We've been seeing a lot more offense since all of a sudden pitchers realize they can't use that
That's
spider
true.
tack or the sticky
Yeah.
stuff. Offense is up, batting average is up. They're saying the spin rate on a lot of these pitchers has dropped. So it may turn out to be a good thing because it's going to get more offense in the game. Baseball had become too predictable. It was either home run or strikeout, and it got boring to watch. So maybe this is
I need some more Ichiro type hitting.
Ooh, Ichiro.
I need some more base to base. Give me a double here and there.
Steal a base every
a
now and then.
base.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
more of that now.
I want to see more steals. I want to see more squeeze plays. That's what the fun of the game is. Like it's
agree.
kind of boring right now.
How about they try to keep it under 3 hours too? Is that possible?
Yeah, how long did that game yesterday take?
Oh, well, that was 4+.
It was brutal.
But it was so funny. The game number 2 of the series, the Bucks.
The 2-1
were on.
game.
Yeah, and we were in the 4th inning, and it was halftime. We always like to play this game, and I said, "Where do you think the game's going to be when the Bucks game is over?" And everybody said 7th inning. I'm like, 7th inning? We're already in the 4th. We just went out in the 7th.
Yeah.
It's
in a
terrible.
2-1
And
game. And the Brewers had 2 hits in that game,
And
right?
they start, 2 hits in the game. They started after us. They started a
That's
good half,
nuts.
45 minutes after.
I'll flip
Yeah.
over to see if he's on his way home yet. And,
Yeah.
you know, the DirecTV guide doesn't update. And his game will be in the 6th inning. And it'll be 2 shows beyond, you know, like it's just insane.
It's the curse of baseball. Yeah. Games are too long.
They're
Way too long. That's why I
Way
don't
too
watch it.
Hey, give me the rifles again, John. Another topic. Good news for Blackhawks fans. Jonathan Toews announced on social media that he's going to try to play this upcoming season and shared the story about all he's been going through over the last year. It was kind of a mystery. He was away from the team, and he said he had this chronic immune disorder. He had a serious case of COVID that he just couldn't shake, and he doesn't know for sure whether or not he's going to be able to stand up to the rigors of an entire National Hockey League season. But Jonathan Toews, one of the classiest Chicago athletes, it's great, Stacey, to see that he's going to try to come back and play next season.
Yeah, because there was a time no one knew what was going
Yeah.
on with him.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was really cool that he shared that what was going on with him, and so now we all know, and hopefully he'll be able to come back from it and be able to play the hockey level that he once was as one of the best players in NHL. So good to see him back because he's still got a lot of hockey left in my opinion.
Yeah, the captain.
Both him and Kaner, man. Listen. I never even followed hockey before I came here. Like, I never watched it, didn't care for it. And then when I came here, a couple of reasons why I started picking up and watching hockey was because of Pat Foley. Pat Foley's last year. Next
Right.
year, he's going to retire.
Yeah, salute
He's gonna
to Pat.
ride, yeah, salute to him. He's going to retire and ride in the sunset like Shane. And then
And Neil Funk.
And Eddie O. And Eddie O's my guy. Eddie O's my guy. I love listening to those guys. They make
Yeah.
hockey fun. And then
333rd and 3rd.
Yeah, and then and watching their young talent grow, and they won those Stanley Cups, and seeing Patrick Kane, who I if I was young, I'd hang out with Patrick Kane. Like if I was his age, I'd be hanging out with him because he's cool. He's fun.
In Buffalo?
Yeah, I'd be in Buffalo.
He looks like trouble.
Hey, so what? I'll be right with trouble. He has a lot of fun, but they're great. They were great to watch. Those teams were great to watch, and they're getting older now, and they're not as successful as they once were. And just like most teams do, you get old, and you got to make some changes here and there. But losing Pat Foley is going to be huge because you remember when Pat Foley, they didn't bring Pat Foley back because of a contract situation, and then they thought that they were going to just put anybody in there, a monkey in a hockey suit, could do it, and they realized he can't.
Yeah.
Guys like Pat Foley are like on the Mount Rushmore. Neil Funks, Harry Carey's, Jack Brickhouse. I'd even put Hawk Harrelson up there, that in Chicago sports, iconic, broadcasters. And to see Pat Foley giving up, leaving his last year here, this is his last season, Hawks fans should really enjoy it. I mean, really, really enjoy it because you won't hear that kind of voice again.
Jimmy Pearsall.
Jimmy. I like Jimmy Pearsall. Like I didn't hear him in the broadcast. I always heard him like on the score. I was a big fan because he had no filter.
I was
He
half
had
kidding.
no
'cause
filter.
I'll tell you those stories
Jimmy-
when we get off the air.
When Jimmy worked with Harry Carey on White Sox radio,
Yep.
that was
couldn't-
something.
you
You never
couldn't
knew what
get
they
it.
were going to say.
No.
Jimmy?
Jimmy?
No.
We'll have to get our research
talk-
department.
yeah,
I think
we'll
he
talk
is.
about that
But
later.
By the way, just a shout out to Barry Alvarez. He retired yesterday. He was at the park. I mean, what he built in Wisconsin, I know this is more of a, but I mean, we had a shot of all the trophies that he's won, and he built that football program. You remember that was a laughing stock in the 80s. He built.
Oh,
that
it was.
team,
It was a
and-
laughing stock.
And
I'm still laughing.
But hey, man, he sustained it for a long. I mean, that's been sustained
Yeah.
success. A lot of number one picks, the Watts and stuff, and it was just kind of cool. We had him on the air yesterday, and just wanted to say a quick shout out to Barry Alvarez.
Yeah, absolutely. Did great work as the athletic director and football coach at the University of Wisconsin.
He's died June 3rd, 2017.
Oh wow.
Jimmy Pearsall.
Jimmy was. Seriously, I love listening to him on the radio. He was always talking about fighting people. If I was still playing today, I would spike him in the chest, and I'm like, oh my
He
god.
was awesome.
He kind of reminded me of Norm Van Leer because Norm was the same.
He
way.
was
Norm
like that.
Norm would tell you what's on his mind and didn't care if it offended you or not. He was a straight shooter. I love that about Norm.
It was a different era of broadcasting, that's for sure.
The movie Fear Strikes Out.
Yes,
that was
based on Jimmy Pearsall, yeah.
Really?
Yep.
We'll have to watch
Yep.
that.
I'm gonna have to watch that. How old is that movie?
It was 1957. Fear Strike Out. A rare glimpse of time at Athletic.
Is that in black and white?
1957. I don't think so. But
We'll check it out.
Is he in the movie or is somebody playing him?
Somebody's
Because
playing.
back in the day, those guys played themselves.
Yeah.
They're terrible actors.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay,
No, I think somebody's playing.
Yeah, I hope somebody's playing, Jimmy.
It was actually Anthony Perkins
Yeah.
who portrayed Purcell, who set himself as
Oh.
a baseball clown. Where the Red Sox went, the fans flocked to see me.
I'll put a link
in
in
his
the photo.
book, Fear Strikes Out. Yeah.
Okay, Fear Strikes Out. Okay.
You know, we mentioned the history-making comeback the Brewers had yesterday against the Cubs, and it got us to thinking about some of the great comebacks we've seen in sports. Sam referenced the fact earlier in the show that Scottie wanted to coach the Bulls back in 2008. They ended up hiring Vinny Del Negro, who had never coached in the NBA before.
I'd have hired Pip.
Yeah, and that team was the victim of one of the worst comebacks. Remember that Sacramento game? They're up by 35 in the third quarter, and they lost.
Oh, I remember like that was yesterday. Like, John, were you working that game?
No,
You missed some classics.
Yeah, I did.
Like there was no way in the world
That Sacramento team was awful.
gonna come. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of things happened after that game because that was the game that Joakim had came back from plantar fasciitis and he wasn't supposed to play but maybe two quarters, and then that was the situation that happened afterwards. But the way they lost that game, because I was sitting there, because you see, when you're doing the game, there's ebbs and flows, ups and downs, and it's the NBA. Everybody
makes
back.
a run, yeah.
But you're in the second half. There's no way in the world a team's going to come back, especially a team as bad as Sacramento was at that particular time. Now maybe the Lakers or Cleveland with LeBron might have done that. But not a bad team.
What
year was
that? It was 2000 and...
It was either in 2009 or 2010.
Oh, it was at home. It was at home.
Didn't we have one in Sacramento? There was.
Yes, we had one in Sacramento.
That-
We had a lot of them.
No, but that we were up at half by some. Yeah. Okay.
But this was worse.
Yeah.
This was worse. This was
was
up.
the
We were
biggest
at
collapse I've
30.
ever seen.
We were up 30-something. And there's no way in the world you thought that Sacramento would come back, and then they came back and won.
Well,
And I think
in
they
this-
won by like almost 10.
Yeah. In these current playoffs, we've seen incredible swings. The one game Atlanta won, they were down 26 to the 76ers, and they came back to win.
Here's the thing about those things, though, especially if you decide to buckle down defensively, you can get stops because the way that, especially in this era where the teams are just flying 3-point shots, they're just shooting 3-point shots, and a team like Milwaukee, who's might be up 26 or 27 points, and they're not making shots now. They've all just said, "Hey, we're up 25. It's my turn to get mine. I'm gonna shoot threes." And then they get 3 or 4 stops in a row, go down there and capitalize and score. Now you go from being up 26.
Yep.
Now you're down 8. They're down 18. And now when you go down again, get a couple more stops and get it down to a 10-point game, then we always say pressure bursts pipes. People's buttholes get really tight when that score goes from 26 to 10. And then next thing you know, all of a sudden now that team's got confidence, and the team that had the lead now has lost confidence.
Yeah.
And then you end up losing the game.
I remember a story when I was a kid. I used to listen to Bucks games on my transistor radio in my bedroom before they were on. Those games were rarely on TV. I'm really old. I'm almost Neil Funk old.
No.
But I was listening to a game. They were playing the Knicks, and Sam reminded me of this, talking about the stories of the Knicks. They were up 16 points in Madison Square Garden. These were the great Knicks teams with Frazier and Reed and all the guys, Bill Bradley and DeBusschere. And Kareem was then Lou Alcindor was a rookie, and they were up 16. And I'm like, they're going to beat the Knicks. The Knicks, they're the best team in the NBA. The Knicks scored the last 18 points of the game to win by 2.
Oh, crush your soul.
I mean, you talk about a comeback to score the last 18 of the game to sneak it out at the end. That's a tough loss.
That's a tough loss. It's hard to come back from. I even go back to when we played Portland, and Phil Jackson's ready to throw in the towel.
Oh yeah.
Wave the towel. We're down 15, 16 points going into the fourth quarter. He's like, takes Michael out, takes all the starters out, and he says, "All right, second team, go out there and play hard." Not like win one for the Gipper, none of that kind of thing. It's just like go out there and just have fun, And so we went out there, and no one thought we were going to come back from 15 down going into the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, boom, 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 we're right back in the game. And then we end up winning the game. But, of course, we cut it to 3, and he wouldn't let us finish it. And he brings
Superman,
in Superman.
yeah.
Hey, Michael, we need you back in the game. And so Michael comes in, dun, 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 And so, of course, we win, and we won the championship. But we were all sitting there like, really?
Yeah.
Like, really? Like,
Can we just get one?
Can we finish this? We got us back in this game because Phil was preparing for game 7. And we got Game 7 at home. You never know how Game 7 is going to be. Plus, that was a great Portland team.
Ooh.
That was a great Portland team.
Talk
Seriously.
about physical.
They don't get the credit that they deserve. Like people kind of skim over the top of them. If they'd have been playing anybody else, they would have won the title. Because then they lost it. Before that, they lost to Detroit, I think, the year before, or they lost to Detroit at some point. But
yeah, they did.
But that was a great Portland team. They had a really, really good team. They got no credit for that. We were just a better team. They were great, but we were greater.
Well, your bench was definitely great. They only played 6 guys, I think, in that game.
Oh, you could see the team meltdown.
Yeah.
Like, when they were upset, they were talking trash. They were talking,
They were angry.
they were all animated, just like Patrick Beverly was. And then all of a sudden, when the score went down and then calls were going against their way, you could just see the facial expressions like panic. Like, oh no, this was not supposed to happen. And that's what happens when you see teams go on these big runs and a team has been like controlling the game the whole way, and then all of a sudden they take their foot off the accelerator. That's why you got to finish teams. If you got an opportunity to finish a team, you got to put them down, because in this game, especially in this era, teams can come back with the way the 3-point line is such a big factor.
Just to put a note, 2009, December 24th, the Kings scored 33 points in the fourth to the Bulls 10, and Joakim Noah played 39 minutes. 39.
And John Paxson went into the office to see Vinny after that.
I'm not saying a word.
Well, and you know what?
I'm not saying a word.
Listen, all I'm going to say about that is he was justified.
Yeah.
Because Joakim Noah at that particular point was just coming off, really, like he had missed some games. He had a soft tissue injury. And that was a game he should not have played 39 minutes. You should have, when you know that he had a minute restriction, your boss told you, okay? Your boss told you minute restriction. You basically said, screw your boss. I'm trying to win the game. I'm trying to save my job. And you play the kid. And then what you end up, he re-injured his foot and caused more pain to it. And that was a tough deal, man. I mean, a lot of people know what happened after that. And, it was a sad situation, but I'll say this. Don't mess with my boy Pax.
Pax can run hot.
Hey, if you want to run up on Pax, you better make sure you bring your lunch pail, because John Paxson is one of the toughest dudes I know, and it takes a lot to get him mad, but he's a powder keg, and he will take you down and choke you out.
And he was always among the leaders in technical fouls.
Yeah.
He used to love to go up to the refs.
Listen, I tell people about John Paxson all the time. John Paxson was an underrated basketball player.
Yeah,
okay?
hell yeah.
John Paxson, you see John Paxson, you say, okay, it's white guy, slow, la, 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 la. John Paxson had to guard some of the top guards in his era.
Yeah.
You got Isaiah Thomas on a nightly basis. You see him 4 times a night. Doc Rivers, Derek Harper. You go down John Stockton's, Kevin Johnson's. Mark Price. People don't give Mark Price a lot of credit. But John never had to be double teamed. No one had to help John out. John took defense personally and would stay in front of guys and literally shut guys down. He never got credit. It was always, Scottie and Michael are great defenders. But John Paxson was right up in that. He's one of the reasons why our defense was so good.
And if you ever went to the hotel gym and you'd walk in and that guy would be on the treadmill at a top speed for like multiple, and then guard would be over there on his phone with gum in his mouth trying to work out, and Pax would be like full sprint. It was impressive to see, because not many, GM, the guy's getting after it.
Pax is one of the toughest teammates I've ever played with. He doesn't get a lot of credit for the GM, and he did.
We got to have him on.
Hey, listen, Pax. Oh, he's gonna come on. So, Pax
sounds more like a threat than an invitation.
Listen, Pax. I just talked to Pax the other day. Pax is coming on. So he doesn't get a lot of credit for being the GM that he was. A lot of people, there was a lot of good things that they did in there. And there was a lot of things that were questionable. But at the end of the day, you know what? You got Derrick Rose. You hired Tom Thibodeau. No one was hiring Tom Thibodeau. They hired Tom Thibodeau, and look at Tom Thibodeau, Coach of the Year this past year. So they did some good things. I think the one thing I wish they would have done, Paxson would have done, is that they would have brought Derrick Rose back. you know, on this team, you know, and let him, you know, he was content mentoring young players, bring him back, and if he's
Maybe AK can do that this summer.
I hope so, because Derrick Rose still has a lot of basketball left, and I think just for not just for ticket value or fan value, but he can still play at a high level. He's better than half the guards in this league.
Yeah, people are talking about Spencer Dinwiddie and Dennis Schroeder. Why not bring back D. Rose?
I'm not a big Schroeder fan. I mean, listen, if they bring Schroeder, they bring Schroeder, but I'm not a big Schroeder fan because I don't think Schroeder helps you as a point guard. I don't think he gets people involved. He
wants to score.
He wants to score. He wants to be the leading scorer. And here's a guy that turned down $84 million, so he thinks he's a $25 million a year player. When you don't defend and you're not an assist guy, I can't. And this team needs, if we haven't seen anything what Atlanta's done and what Phoenix has done with the talent and the things they put together, this team is very similar. And I said to Phoenix, okay, you got Devin Booker and you got Zach LaVine. Okay, the difference. I mean, they both can score. They both can get 30, 40 points easily. I think in order for this team to take the next level, Zach has to be a two-way player. He's got to be a better two-way player because at least Devin Booker does get out there and try to stop people. He has to be that guy. Vooch has got to be better in the pick and roll because everything is pick and roll, pick and pop. He has to be able to defend the pick and roll. You see how deadly it is when you got guys like Zubats in the game with the Clippers, and all they run is pick and roll at him, and they get any shot they want because he cannot come above the free throw line.
Well, they need someone to run that, though. They need Evan Fournier ran that really well for them, right? When he was in.
But defensively, that's where the Bulls need to really take the next step. They can score with anybody. Their offense efficiency, when it was going good before all the COVID and stuff, they were one of the top teams in the league as far as pace and their offense efficiency. Where they got in trouble is their defense. They went from like being a top 14 team defensively to like 20-something middle of the year. They couldn't guard anybody. They got better at the end of the season, and their offense got a little bit down. So it was up and down all season long. And a lot of that, the fluctuation of who's in the lineup. Are you having your starters, your key players in the lineup every single night? That's got to be a key. And your bench. I mean, listen, not taking anything away from the guys they have on the bench, but your bench has to be versatile. You got to be able to go to your bench and say, hey, look, so-and-so's out tonight, but we got this guy coming in behind and will give me 20. Okay, they don't have that on their bench. So other than you look at Thaddeus Young and Satoransky, they're quality players coming off the bench. After that, you just have guys that are nice guys. Fillers for the spot. Felicio,
Archie.
Arch. Those guys are all good guys, but are you going to put Arch in there to start if your point guard's out for 30 games and you say we want Arch out there to start for us? No, you're not. He's a guy that's like your 9th, 10th, 11th man. And even now, with the way the NBA is set up, you got a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, who's a former All-Star, who's now an 8th or 9th man that can come in and play center for you. And he went from being a number 1 guy to like a number 8 or 9 guy in a rotation now. So that tells you how far guys have dropped, and you can find quality out there. Look at Atlanta. They found Gallinari, people thought he was done. He's not healthy, couldn't move, but he's out there contributing to a team that's almost a couple of games from getting to the finals.
I tell you, Daniel Gafford, man, what he did in Washington after that trade.
But that's all about a point guard that's looking for him.
And his attitude was different.
Yeah,
he had every opportunity, and none of these guys who got traded from the Bulls can never say they didn't get an opportunity. You can't. Lowry can't say he didn't get an opportunity.
Wendell.
These guys started. They were given the keys to the car right away. They got to play 35 plus minutes every single night. They were on the floor every single night. So you can't say, well, I didn't get a chance to play in Chicago. They never let me play. I only played 8 minutes a game. You can't say that. You've given every opportunity to shine. You just didn't shine. For whatever reason, you could say it was the coaching. You could say it was the system. It doesn't matter. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. When we came in, you had to earn minutes. There was no keys to a car unless you went to a crappy team. Like if I came out as a lottery pick and went to the Clippers that sucked, okay, they would have gave me the keys to the car and said, "Stacey, go to work."
Or the Timberwolves, you just show up or
Timberwolves. Yeah, just bad teams that you're automatically forced into the lineup to play 30 minutes. But on a great team, on a championship level team or a playoff caliber team, it's not like that. It's like you have to earn the right to play. You have to fight for minutes. You can't. I'm on a team fighting with Scott Williams and Horace and Will Perdue. I mean, we're fighting for minutes every night.
Yeah, but I see where you're going, and I think that, like you said, they can make the leap. But Washington had 3 centers, and like you said, you had to earn your minutes. And I'm hoping that that's going to be the culture there, because that's what you need, guys to show up with that mentality, right?
We got a new coach though. Their coach is
Otto
fired.
Porter. I mean, he came in.
And Thomas Bryant's coming back next year
their
too.
Coach is fired. You don't know who's going to coach.
Yep.
And a lot of times, and what we've seen now, and what we've seen in this playoff is all these guys who are retreads. Stan Van Gundy's, all these guys who can't reach today's players. See, in today's game, you have to be able to relate to these younger guys. You
Absolutely.
have to. And it's not about X's and O's. It's not about, do this, do that. Let's run this play for you. You got to be able to
trust
the music they listen to, the video games that they play, the things that they listen to, the shows they watch on TV. They're what they do off the court. You have to be able to kind of navigate through all that stuff. Phil Jackson was awesome at that. Seriously. I mean, Phil Jackson was ahead of his time because, one, he played the game. Okay. But 2, the one thing he always did that I always appreciated, and when I started coaching, I did the same thing, is that he had a pulse of his team. He knew what everybody was doing. He knew when you had a new baby was born, knew your baby's name, knew your wife's name. Yeah. He knew, if something happened in your family, he knew about it, and he'd come and talk to you about it. So he had a pulse. If we're gambling on the plane, who's winning? Somebody's winning, or he would actively watch us
call people
shooting dice. Yeah, he was just into his team. Yeah. And so when you have that trust factor, as a player, you look at this guy and says, oh, this guy cares more about me than just being a basketball player. I'm just not a piece of meat to him. He really genuinely cares. Now, you're not always going to get along with him. You're not always going to agree with what he says. But the one thing you do is you respect him because he has an understanding of who you are as a person. Like when he gave you out the books. Boom, boom, giving everybody books to their personalities, whatever. He gave me, I think my first year he gave me like Beavis and Butthead, because I was always like playing jokes on people and just being crazy. So he gave me Beavis and Butthead my first year. But then the next year he gave me a Bill Cosby parenting book because I had my first son, and so he gave me a parenting book on how to be a good father, yada yada. It was from Bill Cosby, and that was the fatherly figure back then.
He's free. Cosby. He's free.
Hey,
let's get him on.
He's coming on the show. He'll be on the show.
Speaking of guy who breaks records.
Yeah, let's do it. Mr. Pudding Pop, man.
I was waiting for Whispers to get in a zinger. He got one in at the end. Way to go, Whispers.
Yeah.
Hey, what's new on the hot sauce front? You can get Stacy's Great Hot Sauce at GimmeTheHotSauce.com. How's things going with that business?
I don't know. Stacey hasn't been over for ribs to give me the taste test.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. See, I didn't want to see Andrew Galata pull up the punches, right? So I've been asking Tim for like the last 4 weeks.
All right, we're picking a spot this
okay, so I'm saying, hey man, let's get some ribs. Yeah. I even said, let's bring the Gimme the Hot Sauce
crew down. Yeah, he did mention that last week.
Let's bring the Gimme the Hot Sauce crew over to Tim's house for some ribs. Yes, I invited you.
Thank you.
It's not even my house, but I invited you.
We're free next Friday.
So he's like, yeah. He goes, I'll get some ribs. Yeah, I'll get some ribs. And it's like, okay, so I'm waiting for the ribs and waiting for the phone call. It's Saturday. I don't hear from him. I'm like, okay. Then he calls me and says, let's meet at Moretti's. So we're going to meet at Moretti's Pizza because we're not going to have ribs now. He's already disappointed me because it takes 7 hours. So he tells me, he says, let's meet at Moretti's. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let's meet over at Moretti's. We'll have some pizza talk, whatever, yada, yada. So I said, what time are you going to go? Like 7:30. All right, cool. Call me or text me before you leave so I can go because he lives in Barrington. Moretti's is in Barrington. I got to come a little further, okay? So I'm sitting there waiting. I'm there. I'm at the parking lot at 7:30. I'm waiting for him. 7:45, 8 o'clock. 8.
Oh, that's cold.
9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. So I'm eating pizza in the car. I'm eating pizza in the car. I'm eating pizza in my car. The people over there, the little girl brought it out. Here you go, Mr. King. I'm sorry, Mr. Kelly's not here, but here's a pizza. And so I said, can you give me my hot sauce? Because they have my hot sauce. I'm like, can you give me the hot sauce so I can put it on my pizza? Thank you very much. So I called Tim. Next day, Tim, where you at? Oh, man, let me tell you. I was playing tennis, and I was hurting. My body's never hurt this bad before.
Your fingers hurt?
I can't move. Yeah, did his fingers hurt?
Oh, man.
You couldn't text me?
You left Stacey alone in the parking lot?
Left me alone in the parking lot.
Man.
Left me alone.
Buying this?
Yes.
You guys
Buy it, America.
Buying and
Timmy Whispers
What's
is
your version
a
of that
worm.
story?
I got some hot sauce in my eye. I couldn't see to drive over there.
Oh no!
So this Saturday we're gonna have a little Gimme the Hot Sauce get together.
August
if
10th?
you guys can make it or whatever, he's gonna make some ribs.
I guess that's the plan.
He's gonna make some ribs.
He's inviting America.
America, you can come if you want.
Look
I
out.
did have a good endorsement from a guy on my crew, Jeff Schlinker.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, he said, "Hey, can I get that hot sauce?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well,
it's
how do I-
available.
How do I get it? I said, "Well, you just go to GimmeTheHotSauce.com, and all the flavors, varieties are there, and have at it." He's like, "How is it?" I go, "It's really good." I mean, so yesterday I saw him. He goes, "Hey, I bought some hot sauce. Really good
There
hot
you go.
sauce." So there
Great
you go.
endorsement,
America. If it wasn't good, I would not tell you to buy it. I would not put my name on anything that's not good.
And she'll like it too.
And she'll like it too. But I will say this: the red sauce is really good because it's got a little mix of garlic in there, and it's a little thicker sauce. It's not that watered down stuff that you're used to buying in stores, and it's organic. Okay, but my favorite sauce is, and matter of fact, I got to get some more. Is the St. Pat's Verde Green?
Yeah.
Oh. Lord, it's so. I didn't think I was gonna like it because I don't like green
What do you
stuff.
put that on with chips?
I
or-
put it on chips. You can put. I had it on quesadilla. Like I had a
Yeah.
quesadilla from
Open your
Qdoba's.
mouth and taste it.
Open your mouth and taste it, America. So I put this green sauce on this
That's
quesadilla.
the slogan now.
Open your mouth and taste it. We are very creative at Give Me the Hot Sauce, America.
Pippen didn't take it for his bourbon yet.
Yeah,
so we
hey,
gotta go
listen,
with it.
yeah, because you gotta. What you say about the bourbon?
You gotta have balls to taste this.
That's the Scottie Pippen slogan from his bourbon we just created. Timmy Whispers just created a couple slogans for him. So that was the first one. And then what was the second one?
Don't quit your day job, Timmy.
No, what was the second one?
Open your mouth and taste it.
Open your mouth and taste it. That's the slogan for the digits. It hasn't been approved yet, but we're throwing it out there. So if they use it, we have the copyright here. Give Me the Hot Sauce.
Yeah, Pip's going to
podcast.
trademark it, and you're going to lose it.
Yeah, exactly. We need to get on that right away, Timmy.
I got my lawyer here.
Get the St. Pat's Verde, though. Woo!
Hey, we want to tell you we're going to be taking the show on the road throughout the summer. We've got some things in the works. One thing that's definite, we're going back to our good friends at Saludo's Italian restaurant in Gurnee. So join us
When is
July
that?
15th.
July 15th.
It's a Thursday night, July 15th. We're going to be back at Saludo's. We had a great time last time.
We had an awesome
Everyone
time.
treated us great. And,
Yeah,
and
it was
we
game time.
encourage people to come on out and
Come
have
on
some
out to
fun.
Saludo's.
Yeah,
Yes.
listen to a
card.
live taping of the show. Give Me the Hot Sauce podcast coming to a location near
Fans
you.
will be involved.
So I'm glad Whispers chimed in at the end. Always one of the highlights of the show.
Come out and get a man card.
That's right. We got all those things ready for you to go.
And
So
we'll have some
no
hot sauce out
violations.
there for you to buy if you want it.
All right.
You know, we don't turn nothing down but our collar.
So we want to thank Sam Smith for coming on,
Oh, yeah.
giving us some history lessons about
Daddy.
the NBA and talking about the great Scottie Pippen. And Stacey, I think it's time to take it home.
Woo! Drive home safely, Chicago. Beep, beep.